We're recording. So friends, thank you so much for jumping on here. We are live. We are live. We are live. We're going to talk about, we are going to talk about, yes. Oh, what happened to my music? Oh, there she is. Little Monifa, for those of you that just jumped on. One of my favorite R&B, hip hop, soul songs. It's called Touch It by the artist Monifa. It's appropriate today for today's topic, which is touch. So for those of you that are jumping on here to go, I wonder what David Lee is going to talk about today when it comes to touch and how it relates to us as individuals, with our spouses, with our partner in the sexual realm. We're going to talk about touch today, friends, specifically. A few more bars of Monifa. Here we go. Hello, Stacy. Hello, Samantha. Glad you jumped on here. Super excited about today's episode. We're going to talk about touch. And then, little known secret, not really, getting ready to jump onto a plane for a little vacation. Little vacation with my wonderful, beautiful partner, Paige Stewart. We're going to jump on a plane in here just a little bit. So this is the last thing I'll be doing for a couple of days. So super excited about getting on that plane, going into some heat, some weather, going to Vegas. Really, if you're interested in knowing, oh, there's a story behind that. Is there a story behind that? There's a story behind that. Check out the social media and you'll find out it's really a celebration. It's a celebration. So we're going to tell Monifa to be quiet. All right, so we can get on this and you can actually hear me. Hello, Michelle. Thanks for jumping on. Lori, yes, Vegas. Yes. So we're super excited about jumping on that plane in just a few hours, but this is my last order of business. Thank you so much for jumping on to DLea DLayer. Again, it is Tuesday, noon Central here in the Midwest, and we're going to talk about touch. So as I always begin these episodes, friends, we're always asking the question, why? Why do we even want to talk about touch? Often on our Tuesday lives, we talk about subjects in the realms, the topics surrounding sex and intimacy, and sometimes it can be uncomfortable. For some of you watching right now, anything related to sex, sexual contact, sexual experience, your narrative, sex and intimacy, there may be some struggles, some taboos, some things that, should we be talking about this, right? And allow me to be a tour guide for some of you also too, to potentially move through some shame, move through maybe a past narrative that says sex is wrong or bad or shouldn't be talked about. I am inviting you to be curious before critical, to be open-minded, and to explore with us today. So we're going to talk about touch. So how do you, friends, as we often start these lives with questions to kind of till the soil, as we say, to get us to be thinking about this idea of touch? So my first question to you all is, how do you feel about touch? How do you personally feel about touch? What does touch mean to you? For some of us, touch has a negative triggering response. For some of us, it's, we hear the word touch and tingles just radiate through our bodies. Perhaps when we hear the word touch, certainly when it comes to sex and intimacy, can be a turn on. Can be an avenue through foreplay. And again, some of us have a negative triggering response to the idea of touch. Perhaps touch has been something incredibly negative in our past. Perhaps we have some sexual touching trauma associated with us. So we want to be sensitive to all that as we move through here. So my friends, what does touch mean to you in and outside the bedroom? What's your experience with touch? Do you like to touch others, right? Outside of the sexual realm, outside of any type of sexual innuendo with friends, family members, right? Strangers, right? How do you feel about touch? What are your boundaries associated with touch? Do you like to touch, and do you like to be touched? We teach a whole lot of content surrounding this idea of boundaries and what's appropriate and what's not. And ultimately, boundaries are an external expression of an internal self-affirmation indicating what's important to you, what's valuable, what's appropriate to you. And so touch, oh my gosh, is steeped deeply into boundaries. And we're going to get into that in just a little bit. So Stacey says, I won't date anyone who won't do PDA. I love touch. It comforts my heart. Yeah. Thank you, Stacy, for sharing. Lori says, I'm a hugger. For those I have a connection with, I'm open to touch if there is that connection. Strangers, not so much. I think there's more to that. I can't quite read all of it, Lori, hear this. But yeah, so thank you so much for some of your thoughts on touch. Yeah, I hear you. I'm a toucher. I'm a hugger. And I also have had to learn over the years that not everyone is that way, right? I will approach someone who I just met with a hug, a side hug, a bro hug, right? Whatever it may be. And some folks are certainly not okay with that touch. So we're going to talk a lot, and we're going to weave this idea of consent and boundaries throughout today's DLea DLayered. So what other questions do we have? I think that's it. So we're going to jump right into key concepts. So a little bit of background information, a little bit of research, all right, to understand why touch is important. Right? And so often touch is incredibly debating, right? It's debatable. Like, what do you touch? How do you touch? Where do you touch? Right? And even culturally, societally, even regionally, right? Touches mean something different, right? In some cultures, kissing on the lips with strangers, someone you just meet, there's a touch that's incredibly appropriate and okay. In other parts of the world, it's not so okay, right? So it's important to know your room. As my son, Jaden Lee, shout out to my son, my 18-year-old son, who's getting ready to graduate high school this coming Sunday. So proud of you, son. If you happen to be watching, I don't think he's watching. But anyway, my son is he's incredibly funny and witty. He has me rolling all the time. He says, know the room, Dad, know the room, right? I'm always learning from my kids as well, right? Those of you that are parents out there, do you learn from your children? I do, because these three kids above my head right here, they are so much better than me. So again, shout out to Grace and Jaden and Skylar. Love you guys. So Jaden says, know the room. And so I am inviting you all here when it comes to consent and boundaries and touch to know the room. What does that mean? To know your spouse, to know your partner, to know who you are dating, to know what is appropriate. Touch has been found, friends, I'm going to read a little bit of research here, among other things, to reduce stress. Did you know that? Did you know that touching and being touched can reduce stress? Anyone experiencing stress, anxiety? Anyone? Lori says the forehead kiss. Yes, Lori, we love the forehead kiss. Y'all like the forehead kiss? Do you agree with Lori? We love the forehead kiss. So touch has been found to reduce stress, heart rate, and blood pressure. Anybody up for that? Taking a deep breath on that. I hope you all can join me. Yeah. Touch has been found to lower the level of cortisol in the body. You know what that means? And by the way, especially in women. So ladies, those of you that are watching now or hashtag replay, if you're watching later, okay? Cortisol, when it is elevated, right, impedes our working memory. I need all the help I can get. I am incredibly forgetful. So I need those cortisol levels down. I need to be touched. I love to be touched. I do. And I grew up in an environment where it wasn't necessarily always touchy-feely, and it's part of my DNA. Okay. Also touch, critically, okay, the immune system's resiliency is based on the levels of cortisol that are dropped. Healing, friends, right? When we are touched, we heal quicker. There's something. And by the way, healing both externally and internally. Not only physically, our body, our gut to heal, but our emotions. Important. We are more reactive when cortisol levels are heightened. Breath is short. We have less oxygen as being accessed to the brain, disrupting hormones. I mean, we have all kinds of things that are less that we need for this body to work, and touch can be an integral part of that. I will share with you. I'm a guy, I'm a dude. So guys, those of you that are watching, you know what? We have a different narrative at times. We have a different experience with this idea of touch, right? Touchy-feely, right? Sometimes men, certainly in our culture, have been shamed away from touch, away from hugs, unless it's our mom, our aunt, our grandma, maybe a sister. Ooh. There is quite a bit of shame surrounding the male narrative when it comes to touch, outside of a sexual touch, a genital touch, right? And there's shame surrounding the idea of two men touching, hugging, accidentally touching or grazing another man, right? There certainly has been a narrative in my experience where there are homophobic themes like, oh my gosh, you can't get too close, can't touch, we accidentally touched, right? It can be incredibly confusing for us guys, especially as we age, right? And we crave, ladies, if you are watching and listening, please, 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 we men crave touch. We crave cuddling. It's true. Now, we may be shamed into the opposite of that, right? Because cuddling can always and obviously appear to be vulnerable, right? And again, we've talked about this on these DLea DLayers, that the greatest fear that we men have is to ever appear weak. We never, ever, ever, ever want to appear weak. Vulnerability too often and mistakenly shows weakness. In fact, it's just the opposite, right? All the ladies out there right now are saying, oh my goodness, I want my man, I want my husband, I want my partner to show vulnerability. I want to be able to hug and kiss, non-sexual touch with my wife, my partner, right? Without the idea of shame, right? We want to know that we have those spaces and places. Touch can be hard for us guys. Yeah. Too often when we move away from our mother's touch, we men, right? We're very confused. We're often teased if we're touched by our mothers and hugs and kisses and all those as a mama's boy, right? And then we shame ourselves as we move through life. Then it seems very confusing when we begin to date, begin to court, move into marriage, perhaps, if that's your choice, right? Then what is it? What's the touch? And we're very confused on what that looks like. So I invite all of us men watching on the call, right, to understand our need, our desire for touch, all types of touch. And we're going to talk about all types of touch in just a moment. And ladies, those of you that are on this call, I would invite you to be curious, right? I would invite you to provide the space and the vulnerability for men to not be shamed, right? When they want to appear vulnerable, right? To be touched, to invite that, right? And have a really grounded, powerful, elevated conversation. We're going to get there as well too. All right. So I want to also address the idea that touch, again, can be negatively triggering for many of us, right? Many of us have had experiences with trauma related to touch, perhaps sexual trauma, perhaps trauma that was inappropriate from our past. This is important to note. And my heart certainly goes out to all of those who have been affected by that. And now that affects moving forward in relationships, in your marriage, in dating, right? We're going to talk about some action steps towards that in just a moment. So let's dive in a little bit more. There are various types of touch. Did y'all know that? Right? Lori says, holding hands. I love this in my relationship. Absolutely. Y'all love to hold hands? I love to hold hands. I do it this way. I like to interlock the fingers, right? Do you have different ways? Do you do this? What's your preferred method? Put it in the chat. Love to see it. All right. So various types of touch can be soft and grazing, scratching, squeezing, spanking. If that's your thing. Again, appropriate with consent, right? Playful touch, calming touch, erotic touch, seductive touch. There are different speeds and pressures when it comes to touch. Oh, that's important, right? As we like to say, Paige Stewart says this all the time, variety is the spice of life, right? That we mix things up. We've talked about this on past Tuesday Lives when we are focusing on sex and intimacy. That getting into sexual experienced ruts is very common, and we need to be open and curious and explore, right? Variety is the spice of life. Different speeds and pressures. Various body parts, right? Right? To touch, right? Oftentimes we hold hands, we put our hand on our back, we rub shoulders, right? If it's more of an intimate, more of a connective relationship, maybe a hand to the inside of the thigh, a squeeze of the leg, whatever it may be. A touch is vitally important for our bodies to be restored, to heal, and to thrive, friends. Touch is just not about, oh, it feels good. It does our body good. Touch is important. The right, consensual, beautiful touch, male, female, whatever gender, all genders, no gender, right? The right touch can say the following things. You'll be okay. I'm proud of you. Yeah, I'm worried about it too. It's scary, isn't it? You're freaking amazing. Come on, I invite you to talk to me. What's happening with us? Something feels off. And I love you. Touch can be incredibly communicative, right? Can say so much. We often talk about this idea, Daring Deeply, of elevated conversation, of elevated language, and how we teach and coach is to invite, right? To validate. Touch can be incredibly validating without any words. A scratch on the back, right? A rub on the back of the head. I love that. Right? A loving scratch on the head, maybe a tap on the butt, right? A deep, powerful hug. Oh, how about that? Even talking about it, I'm breathing that in. Y'all watching, right? Y'all with me? Right? You're thinking about all the ways we can touch and how beautiful, how powerful, how strong it can be, and how it can relate to us. Emotions that often do not need words. So I invite all of us today to consider touch. Touch both inside and outside of the bedroom. I invite, when we're talking about sexual experiences with our spouse and partner, that touch is elevated, that we invite one another first, here's some action steps, first into a conversation. Let's find out what our partner, what our spouse wants and desires. And by the way, they may not know, right? So to co-create an experience together, does this feel good? Does that feel good? Does this feel good? Does this feel good? Does that feel good? Actually communicate, use your words. As I taught my children when they were very young, when they wanted to and grunt, I would say, use your words, because they knew what words meant. So I invite all of us as adults watching this right now, let's use our words. Let's communicate. What do you like? What do you don't like? And by the way, when something doesn't feel right, doesn't feel appropriate, feels off, doesn't feel good, is that we have the boundaries and the strength and the confidence and the trust with ourselves first to be able to communicate that. Hey, that doesn't feel good. Gentle, slow down, speed up, harder, softer, right? Touch, when we're talking about in the bounds of sex, it's important. It's super important that we have these conversations. As I like to tell my kids, and again, if they're watching, they'll be like, oh, here we go, right? The answer to every question never asked is always no. I'm going to say that again. The answer to every question never asked is no. So how can we expect our partner, our spouse, to know how we like to be touched, squeezed, spanked, scratched, right? What part of our bodies? It's important. Next, action steps, friends, is always to be asking for consent, even if you have been married for 5, 10, 15, 25 years, is to ask for consent, because the touch and the body can shift and change over time. And maybe something that felt good a year ago doesn't necessarily feel good now, right? There may be some physical changes and shifts, right, that may heighten, right, the touch. We may be more sensitive, okay? Women who have had children have dramatic changes in how their body chemistry is made up, and maybe their touch is different than it was before children. Be aware of that, guys. Be aware of that, okay? Also, too, be present. Be present with your touch. Oftentimes we touch and we're not even paying attention to what we're doing, right? We talk about this a lot in Daring Deeply, is to be present, means to be in the moment, right? We are inundated with all types of distractions. And I would invite us to consider with our touch to be present, right? We all know what it feels like, right? We all know what it feels like to not be present, to not be listening, right? We love it when someone is expressive and they're present with us with their touch. I invite you to explore, right, with your spouse or partner. Explore. When we're talking about sex, I would invite you to be curious, to explore every inch of that body. Friends, there are not just a couple of spaces and places in which for you to touch when engaging in sex. The genitalia, obviously, we love to be touched there. There are incredible nerve endings pulsating through our bodies. That's what feels so good. And I would invite you to explore the entirety of the rest of your bodies. Do it together. Have an elevated conversation. Invite and validate. Ask for feedback, right? And explore, right? Who knows? Somebody's pinky toe. That may be the most erogenous zone on someone's body. You don't know, and it just needs a little squeeze. Just a little squeeze. You never know. Every single soul is different. Your spouse, your wife, your husband, your partner, your girlfriend, your boyfriend, right? My guess is very, very different than you. Obviously, you have a lot in common. Perhaps that's why you're together. That's fantastic. And your bodies are completely different DNA chemical makeups. So ask, explore. I mean, explore every inch. You never know what you might find. Also, leverage other appendages. I'm going to let that sit for a minute. Some of you right now are going, what? What's he talking about? Leverage other appendages. The hands are fantastic to touch and to receive touch. And we have other ways of touching with our tongue, our lips, our elbow, our toes, our legs, our breath. Have you ever felt the soft, warm blow, the breath of someone you hold dear on your body? That is touch, my friends. Oh, yeah. So leverage other appendages. Touch isn't just for your hands. And friends, those of us who are struggling, right? Those of us who perhaps have suffered some trauma related to the idea of stress, related to the idea of touch, has produced stress, high levels of cortisol into the body, right? Is to seek support in that healing. This is my challenge. If you're open to it today, friends, if you're open to the challenge today, is to seek support and help emotionally, physically, through therapy, counseling, coaching, right? To help you move through the trauma, to help you find the other side, to how that inappropriate touch has affected you, perhaps your entire life, right? Is to realize that on the other side, potentially that touch could illuminate not only your physical relationship, your emotional relationship with your partner, with your spouse, with others around you. And lastly, friends, I invite you always, always, always to have fun. Have fun exploring, have fun touching one another. There are so many resources out there, right, that involve the idea of touch long before sexual intercourse takes place, right? We talk about foreplay all the time at Daring Deeply and how important it is to the overall sexual satisfaction within a marriage, within a partnership. And so it's so super important to be playful and to be fun, Let's have fun with our touch. Let's invite, let's seek, let's be curious, let's be sensitive, let's be consensual. Thank you so much, friends, for jumping on today. I hope this has been valuable. You may have friends, family members who find these DLea DLayers important and valuable. I encourage you to share this content with us. You can also find out more about what we do at Daring Deeply. We provide leadership and life and relationship coaching in a variant amount of ways, with one-on-one coaching and group coaching, webinars, retreats, one-day experiences. So if you want to know more, please leave me a message. Send me a message. You can find us on daring-deeply.com. I invite you to go there and find out more about what we do. I hope this has been helpful. And also, please, please, please check out our new YouTube channel. You can search Daring Deeply in YouTube. Please subscribe, ring the bell so you know when we have new video content up on the YouTube. Do you like the YouTube? Please come find us. We super appreciate all the support. Hope this has been helpful, friends. Have a fantastic rest of your week. We are off to Vegas here in just a couple of hours, getting ready to jump on a plane. So thank you for all your love and support and sending us that way and all the safe travels and all of that. We love you and we thank you for your support of Daring Deeply, and we'll see you next time. Thanks, friends. Take care. Bye-bye.